Hi folks, welcome to your Jersnet Scotland versus Hungary and Stuttgart and Euro 2024 preview pod coming to you in association with Jersnet, the Jersnet microphones, which I still continue to use. My name's Alec Anderson. Summer in the city where the air is still. A baby being born to the overkill. Yeah, I had a dream last night. I had a dream. When dreams come true, then Bonnie Scotland. It doesn't matter how kind of phlegmatic you are about Scotland's chances tonight, it doesn't matter how bitter you are about Scotland. I hope Scotland get beat tonight, the SFA, everything they've done to Rangers, etc., etc. All these Scotland fans that hate Rangers, a lot of nonsense. If you're having an anxiety dream, doesn't matter club, country, you're having an anxiety dream the night before about that game, you realise you are invested, whether you want to be or not. I am seriously invested in this game. Dream that I definitely, absolutely had last night. It was Roddy Frame, but it was Billy Gilmour. He's got the leather jacket on, he's got the Rickenbacker guitar, he's got the white t-shirt, he's got the wee specs that Paul McGann wears in Withnail, and he flips the shades down on them, cool as anything, when he's bringing the Jag out onto the road and they're leaving their London gaff before heading off to a delightful weekend in the country. And Roddy Frame's one. I'm thinking, why is it Roddy Frame? What's Roddy Frame got to do with anything? He does look a bit like Billy Gilmour. He doesn't pass into an old man like me anyway, because Billy's just a young guy with hair. But Roddy Frame's maybe just a bit older than me, actually. Maybe trying to even up the whole embarrassing age thing. Every time I look at Billy Gilmour, I think, my God, how old am I? But Roddy Frame was a cool guy when I was young. Aztec camera and all that. And I remember, I don't know if it was something Roddy Frame has said in print. I can't quite remember. This is in reality. This isn't the dream. I can't quite remember if it's something Roddy Frame has actually said in print or somebody else has said about him in a magazine or something somewhere. I think it might actually be Davy, the boy who ran with the Airdrie Section B that I went to Glasgow College of Building and Printing with in the day release course that he used to do back in the 80s. I'm sure he told me I was at school with Roddy Frame. I think he was at school at East Kilbride, Davy. And he was always the last one picked for the football team. Roddy Frame was always the last one picked for the football team. That Scottish thing, you're like, I know he's successful, but I know something about him that's crap. Maybe that's Billy Gilmour went to the same primary school as me. He went to Ardrossan. He went to Stanley Primary School in Ardrossan. And I mean, it's very different. There's a completely different building when I was there. It's been levelled, the Stanley Primary School that I went to, and a new Stanley Primary School built on the site, built adjacent to the foundations of the one I went to. But they went to the same primary school, and I wasn't the last one picked when we were having football playtime and all that. But I was never exactly a first pick. Anyway, but I don't know if that's what it was in my head. But Billy Gilmour standing there in this dream of mine. He's standing on the goal line of the Rhein Energy Stadion in Cologne, but it's actually Stuttgart, but it's actually Campbell Park, Saltcoats. Now, I don't know. You know what it's like in a dream where a place isn't a place, but you know what place it's supposed to be. And at the same time, people are Roddy Frame, but they're actually Billy Gilmour. You know who the person's supposed to be. And back beyond the halfway line, in the other half of the park, there's two teams trying to get up to us, trying to catch up to us. They can't get past the halfway line, and it's Scotland and Switzerland, but Switzerland, they wear a red home top and a white away top, same as Hungary do. So somehow they're Hungary, somehow it is tonight's game, and Billy's standing on the ball. He's got the ball trapped under his feet on this goal line, and I'm facing him. I'm standing on the goal line as well. I've got Scotland strip on, and he's saying, Alec, just you put it over the line. I'm like, what? He says, no, I gave it to you, you gave it me back, but you're going to put it over the line. When I do the 1-2, I am the provider. I'm like, Billy, why don't you just put it over the line? You're an international football player. I was rank at football when I was at Stanley Primary School. You should be scoring the goal here. Historic stuff. You're going to put us into the knockout stages for the first time ever in Scotland's history if everything else goes all right. And he's like, no, because you scored against France, Billy. You scored against France in that friendly in Lille. I was so proud you being for a draw. And he says, what was the final score? I said, we get beat 4-1. I said, but you've played for Brighton and Hove Albion in the Premier League and all that. And he says, and what happened when I had my first goal involvement for Brighton? You get beat 4-1 after you had an assist for Brighton, your first ever assist for Brighton, and they get beat 4-1 after Newcastle. I see what you're doing here, Billy. He says, plus Mbappe, I score in France. I score against France. And Kylian Mbappe is the greatest player in the world. He's never scored in the Euros. He scored more goals in the final of the World Cup, than anybody else, and he's still only an amoeba, the same as me, Billy Gilmour. I'm quoting Billy here. I'm taking his role in this dream here. He says, but no, he's never scored in the Euros. It's one of the things. He sets up the goal, then he puts the ball into the box, and Austria head it into their own net so France can beat Austria. And then he breaks his nose, Mbappe, so he can't play in the next two games. He's not going to play in the first three games of the Euros. He's never going to score in the Euros. I can't score in the Euros before Mbappe scores in the Euros. If I'm going to be the Mbappe of Scotland, I have to keep myself in this. So I know what you're doing here, Bill, but why are you holding the Scottish Junior Cup? He says it's no. I says, no, I know, Billy. I can see that it's no the replacement Scottish Junior Cup trophy that you're holding there as well as you're Rickenbacker guitar. I know that it's the original one, the one that Darvel lifted when they beat Beath in the most recent Scottish Junior Cup final. It's actually a replacement. It's a replica. It's beautiful. It's an old Victorian trophy, but the original one was falling to pieces. The Scottish Junior Cup. Billy is holding the one on the goal line of Campbell Park. Salkits Vix, which is actually the Rhine Energy Stadium in Cologne, which is actually the Neckar Stadium in Stuttgart, where Scotland are playing tonight. He's holding the one that Salkits Victoria won in 1925. I am a Rangers supporter. The biggest target ever for us is the European Cup or the Champions League, as it's now currently known. We've never got to the final. Celtic have won it once. I'm a Scotland supporter. The biggest target for us is the World Cup. To win the World Cup, England have won it once. We've never, well, you know what Scotland have never done at major finals. That's the whole point of tonight's game. We never get past the first round. I am an Ardrossan Winton Rovers supporter. That's my juniors team. That's my non-league team, as it would be now. The biggest thing for them is the Scottish Junior Cup. We've never even got to the final. We've lost semi-finals. We've lost the semi-final at Ibrox. Salkits Vix have won it once. Salkits Victoria, the town next to Ardrossan, the town my mum's from, the town Steve Clarke, the Scotland manager. My mum knows Steve Clarke's mum. It's all coming home tonight. Watching Scotland. Tass Thistle. Billy Gilmour played for Tass Thistle. TASS. The Ardrossan, Salkits, Stevenson. The three towns that I come from, that I hail from. Team Ardrossan, Salkits, Stevenson. He got Nathan Patterson a game for Tass Thistle. Anyway, that's a different thing, but that was absolutely amazing to find that out the other day. Billy Gilmour is standing in the goal line saying, you have to put it over the line. I do the 1-2s. You've got to, and that, I'm sure that's a dream type reference to the fact Billy Gilmour was saying, give me the ball back, Anthony. Give me the ball back, Tony. He was going for a 1-2 with Anthony Ralston the other night, but Anthony Ralston didn't have the guts to give him the ball back, didn't have the wherewithal, and he turned and he tried to play it back to the keeper, and that's what let Switzerland equalise the other night. And Billy Gilmour's playing the 1-2s, have the guts to play like Billy Gilmour. Hungary, good attack, good defence, no midfield apparently. Robert Sly, is he no midfielder as well? I don't know. But this is what a Hungarian football expert was saying in BBC Scotland the other day. And Scotland, of course, what we do have: defence, seriously European, getting injured; attack, seriously European, getting injured. But we have a midfield. We do have a midfield there, and Billy Gilmour is the beating heart of that midfield. If we can get him playing, he got COVID-19 just as he turned 20 in 2021 during the last Euros when he came in for that second game. He's coming for the second game in these Euros. It's Salkits Ardrossan thing. That means Steve Clarke isn't picking him for the first game in these Euros, but he got the COVID-19 so he could play in the third game of the last Euros, and Scotland went out, and tonight we have a chance of going through. Get Billy Gilmour in that team. He's got that Scottish Junior Cup, and he's saying to me, Alec, we can finally put Ardrossan on the map in a bigger national way than Salkits Vix winning the Junior Cup. We can unite Salkits and Ardrossan, finally can be united by the fact that I'm helping Scotland. I'm going to be the star of Scotland, getting through into the next round of the Euros. Ardrossan's going to do something mightier than Salkits winning that Junior Cup 99 years after Salkits won. I'm like, but Steve Clarke's for Salkits. Steve Clarke he went to St Andrews Academy. I went down to Ardrossan Academy. That's the academy, makes it sound posh. It was great. I mean, it was a fantastic school. A lot worse schools you can get in the world, but it wasn't an academy, if you know what I mean. Billy Gilmour went to Grange Academy. He went to Kilmarnock because it is a football academy. It's got the whole SFA academy thing going on there. So he never went there. But across the playing fields from Ardrossan Academy was St Andrews Academy, the other school in that part of the world, the other secondary school. There used to be big battles would go on there in the plantation. It was a wee kind of area just down there at lunchtimes between the two big secondary schools in that area. But Steve Clarke went to he's a few years old. He's only like 4 or 5 years older than me, Steve Clarke. But he went to St Andrews. St Andrews, patron saint of Scotland, and we've got Billy Gilmour in there. I am the provider. Give me the 1-2, Alec. You put it over the line. That's what he's saying to me, because I was born. And I mean, Billy Gilmour's born in Ardrossan. He's born in Ardrossan. But he was actually born in it. Like everybody in Ardrossan, he wasn't actually born in Ardrossan. He was born in Irvine because that's where the maternity ward is. But you know the place you were brought up. I was brought up, born, if you like, in Winton Street, Ardrossan. There was Winton Park. His dad played for Ardrossan Winton Rovers. William Gilmour. Billy Gilmour's actually christened Billy. He's Billy Clifford Gilmour. And amazingly, my middle name is also Clifford as well. He's Billy Clifford, and my middle name is Clifford since yesterday when I changed it online by deed poll after watching the SFA sponsored video, Our Billy, all about Billy Gilmour, all about Ardrossan. That shot they show you of Ardrossan going over the harbour, which is now a yacht a haven, a marina we're calling it now, and it is beautiful, and it's absolutely lovely, and it's so much nicer than it was when I was a lad. But I loved it when it was the old harbour, just when I was a lad. But don't think Ardrossan it's one of the poorest towns in the whole of Scotland, the whole of Britain. So don't be fooled by the marina thing. It's not in any way posh. It's Central Avenue. My grandpa used to kick the ball. But I'm in this dream. I'm saying to Billy, I was born in Winton Street, Billy Gilmour. I was born in Winton Street. And the first football match, my auntie took me up to Winton Park. It's at the top of the street. Winton Park, the home of Ardrossan Winton Rovers, a team that Billy Gilmour's dad played for, William Gilmour, for 10 years. That was the first place I went to watch football. I had a season ticket for there, £1 season ticket in 1983, 1984. And I'm saying, I probably saw your dad play. And he's like, my dad wasn't born when you were going to watch Ardrossan Winton Rovers as a kid. It was your grandpa. I'm probably the same age as your grandpa who kicked the ball for you in Central Avenue. You get to the top of Winton Street in Ardrossan, where Winton Park sits there. There's just before you actually go into Winton Park, you juke round to the left and it's Anderson Terrace. Anderson Terrace. Face it, I'm Anderson Terrace. And is it any wonder that I have this absolute mental fascination with football? It's beyond Freudian. It was that kind of, you want to go back to the womb type thing. Winton Park, Ardrossan, that's the place I would go to get back to the womb. It's in my heart, it's in my soul. Rodelben, Spexard, Spenge, and a Brittany flag. Did you see the France against Netherlands game on Friday night? It got a bit boring, and you can't help it. It's a bit like the stadium in Gelsenkirchen, the Auf Schalke, the Veltins Arena, Schalke 04's ground, Gelsenkirchen. It's the same at Leipzig Stadium. The wall, the front row of the stand is about 12 feet off the ground, as it should be. It's really good for viewing. Great sightlines, but it means the flags, the banners that the fans are hanging, and what a beautiful, aesthetically pleasing Euros this has turned out to be. They're all hanging much more clearly. You can get a right good look at them when the football's a bit boring. I noticed this Rodelben, Spexard, Spenge, and it's this thing that the Germans do, German fans do, no matter what game they're at. Obviously, this Euros is taking place in their country, and they're big ground hoppers anyway, the Germans, but they're just letting you know. I've looked up these names. They're all places in Germany, and it's Spenge in particular sounds like one of the names on the register that Rowan Atkinson is reading out in that skit he does during the Secret Policeman's Ball, his rubbery face is making it really funny. Spenge, all the strange names he's reading out. But I looked it up, and I think it's in Lower Saxony. Is that the one that's in Baden-Württemberg? Scotland are played in that area tonight. Anyway, it's all these places, and it's really, they just seem to get a bed sheet, the Germans. Really strange flags. And cut the bed sheet in half, and then lengthways, they just fill it up. They put on these uppercase letters that are the full height of the bed sheet or the banner, and they just take up the whole banner, just like, Spenge, this is the name of my town. There you go, representing, absolutely fantastic. Literally putting themselves on the football map, putting their town on the football map. It's not like VFB Spenge or Werder Spenge or anything like that. It's just Spenge, just the name of the town. Absolutely tremendous, really interesting aspect of German football culture. So I was noticing them the other day. There's a wee Brittany flag as well. The French are there, they're representing, and it's the Dutch on the park with their all orange strip, and the red, white and blue of the French fans in one half of the stadium. And then I noticed next to the Spenge and the Spexard flags, little OGC Nice flag, the OGC Nice crest hanging there. The club, the very first club that Rangers played in European competition, our first ever European opponents, and the first ever European game that I went to, first ever European club tie that I went to, was 1984-85 season, Rangers at home to Inter. We beat Inter of Milan and an epic night at Ibrox, but it wasn't enough to put us through because of the damage that was done in the first leg. And France just how the French football team in their first 2 games of these Euros have been wearing this Nike kind of strange, twisted version of that 1984, kind of 1982 to 1985 Rangers Umbro away strip, where they've got the pinstripes, it's red and blue pinstripes, but it's the same kind of colours, the same kind of pattern, very reminiscent of something that, saw John McClelland, Robert Pritz, Dave McKinnon, Cammy Fraser, Ali Dawson wearing back in the day. The 2 times we wore it at Ibrox, the previous season we wore it against Porto, and we beat them at home in the Cup Winners' Cup. We wore that top anyway, different kind of shorts and socks combination. But that's what you did in those days when I first started going to watch European football. The first European football matches I saw, the tradition was, or the rule was, the protocol was that the home team wore their away kit. If there was any kind of colour clash, and Rangers, won both those games at Ibrox wearing that top and went out both times over the 2 legs. And I'm thinking, this kind of Rangers, the red, white and blue, the orange, the old away. In Leipzig of all places, the place that came to represent my greatest ever moment as a Rangers supporter. The team from Leipzig, we lost 1-0 in that very stadium, France and the Netherlands were playing in the other night, on Friday night at the Euros. Rangers lost there in the first leg of that semi-final, lost 1-0. We'd been there for a friendly a few years previously and get totally hammered. But it was all building towards Leipzig. Who would have thought, of all the European teams that are on the go, this brand new, comparatively team, heavily sponsored RB Leipzig, they would represent the greatest night of my life, the greatest moment of my life, really, as a supporter of Rangers. And it's quite a thing there. And I think about it's really all been huge gold cock standing proud. That's what France had. That was what made their strip different. And it's that huge gold cockerel they've got as a crest, and that's beyond being, kind of 1982, 1985. It's like a 1950s, 1930s style emblem cockerel as well. And it's actually on a bit of green grass. It's standing on a bit of green grass if you look closely at the France strip, which you had time to do there because it was such a boring game. But yeah, it's that's the main difference between a huge gold cock kind of standing really proud. And I think the thing with Leipzig had always been coming. When I think about it, when I think about finals football, when I think about Germany hosting finals football, when I think about me, I've been to Euro 96, I was at Euro 2021 obviously, or Euro 2020, and I went to the 2006 World Cup, the opening game played in the Allianz Arena, Munich, Germany, at home in the Allianz Arena in Munich, and I went to that game, and it was a last-minute thing where I got a ticket, and the only way I was going to get there, they're playing Costa Rica at that time, no Scotland, but the connotation Scotland and Costa Rica, our first game in a major, it's a humiliation in our opening game at a tournament. The connotations are all there, but I had to get a ticket, or the coincidences are all there, I get a ticket at the last minute through this kind of mad lottery thing that FIFA were running, and it gave me very little time to arrange my travel, and obviously everything was massively overbooked in Germany, so I had to fly into Frankfurt, it was the opposite end of the country from Munich, and it was the Frankfurt Hahn, the airport on the outskirts of the kind of Prestwick to Frankfurt, as like Glasgow, as Prestwick is to Glasgow. And so you got a bus, there's a bus taking you into Frankfurt. This was in the dead of night, it's after midnight when we actually arrived in Frankfurt, but the bus was full of England fans because England were playing Paraguay in their opening game of that World Cup, the 2006 World Cup, in Frankfurt, the same stadium that's been used, the same stadium that Scotland played in its old format in the 1974 World Cup finals. And that was my first interaction. I had no interaction. I didn't want to open my mouth because a bus was very nice, lovely guys, just guys that were over for the football, bit of banter on that, but I was just on my own and I wasn't opening my mouth to let them hear my accent on that long bus trip into Frankfurt. Then I'm thinking, right, that's me, I'm out of danger now. I'm in Frankfurt, Hauptbahnhof, trying to get my connection down to Mannheim. I was changing at Mannheim, get the train all the way down to Munich for that opening game, and a big fella comes up, massive skinhead. He's actually got Harrington on as well. Huge guy. Like, I'm 6'2" nearly. This guy must be 6'4" and 6'4" wide as well. Storming towards me, and he's speaking. I didn't think it was. I wasn't sure. Is that German? He's speaking, but it just sounds so angry and it sounds aggressive. I can't believe this. I'm going to get a doing, off one guy in Frankfurt Hauptbahnhof, midnight, while waiting for a connection to Munich. And then I realised, I looked in, and he's wearing clogs. He was wearing red plastic clogs, and I realised he thought I was German. He's a Dutch fan. The Dutch and the Germans quite mutually intelligible. Plus the Dutch can speak any language. And he's basically thinking I'm a German, and the Dutch hate the Germans, so he's asking me aggressively, where do I get a train to Leipzig? How am I going to get a train down to Leipzig? And I'm like, mate, I'm Scottish. But I'm just here to to go and see the opening game of the World Cup. And he's like, oh, right, aye. So he's chatting away quite friendly after that. I couldn't help him with the train to Leipzig, and I eventually get my overnight train down to Munich. But it's like it's always been happening. It's always been there. It's always been Rangers were always heading. Leipzig was always going to be massively significant somehow in my life. Talking of flags, did you notice all the England flags? Frankfurt and Thursday night, and then it was Gelsenkirchen. They played their game against Serbia last Sunday. All the England flags, all the St George's crosses, the fans have got them on. They were laid out side by side, really neat, as I say, around those kind of high walls at the perimeter wall around the pitch, and you get a chance to look at them. It's a really boring game, but they all say Manchester City, Manchester United, Birmingham City, Plymouth Argyle. The flags, all the St George's crosses hanging next to each other. And was it at that game I saw a Union Jack and I got right on my high horse? And a fucking Union Jack there. I thought that had been stamped out, this idea that the English are representing Britain. That's one thing that really gets my goat as somebody who's quite happy to be Scottish and British. It really gets my goat when the English adopt the Union Jack. Then the cameras went back round and the Union Jack had a Rangers crest on it. Rangers fans at the game. Okay, that's fine. So, but the England fans, they're quite happy to have obviously. And you'll see the Scotland. You see the Scotland games. Every Scotland game. Never mind the Scotland games at this tournament. Every Scotland game I've been to. When you think about it, maybe I'm remembering this wrong. It's all saltires or lion rampants, but mostly saltires hanging next to each other. And there's not like a Hearts, no Celtic, Hibs, certainly no Rangers. There's no saltires hanging with club names on them. They've got the names of boozers on them, and they've got the names of towns. And maybe the names of a boozer in a certain town. The Tam O'Shanter, Ayr, that kind of thing. But they never seem to have, even though it's quite difficult to put when so many football clubs' names are simply the name of the town. You know, you might see a Brecon flag, but you don't see a Brecon City saltire. You might see an Elgin saltire, but you don't see an Elgin City saltire. You certainly don't see, as I say, Rangers, Celtic, Hearts, Hibs. It's really weird, that, isn't it? And is it like, are we even more internecine? The English just basically, at their root, the England support, accept the fact that you just support your local team. So if you're born in Plymouth, you're going to support Plymouth. I know in the super globalised football these days, that's not the way it is. More and more kids are supporting teams from outside their hometowns, and as an Drossen, I did support my local junior team, a local non-league team, but Kilmarnock, I think, my local senior club, but off I went to support Rangers, same as Billy Gilmour's family. But are the English just less easily offended? They actually, at their base, they accept that most people just support the local team. The guys from Birmingham, who supports Birmingham City, I'm not going to get offended because I'm a Manchester United fan, and they hang their banners next to each other because they know that they're all there to support England, and that's what it's all about. And is it Scotland? We don't risk putting that kind of stuff up because we know we're much more likely to fall out with each other, much more hate-filled, we're much more crab it. The drink is still banned at Scottish football matches, and you're watching this Euros, and even the Serbs are getting their bevy on. You see the close-ups of the supporters, beautiful close-ups of the supporters at these stadiums is phenomenal. I've never seen anything like it. Never seen so many Romania fans. Certainly never seen so many Georgian fans because I've never qualified for anything before. But Romania been at plenty of tournaments, obviously during the downfall of the Ceausescu's and just afterwards. But this is the noise they were making in Munich when they beat the Ukraine, hammered the Ukraine the other day, and it was hard to tell because everybody's wearing gold strips. Both teams have kind of yellow gold home tops. But when the national anthems get played and then when Romania started banging their goals in, you knew that they must have had about 30,000 people in that stadium. And the Turkish fans, the Albanian fans, oh my God. It's for such a small nation. I know there's a huge diaspora with Albania. Most of them, are being offed by Liam Neeson in those on those films of his. The Taken films, but that doesn't seem to have stopped them having a massive football and support. It's phenomenal. But everybody's getting their bevy on the close-ups. Everybody's with a beer. Some guys have got a fag in that as well. Even the Serbs with their reputation, are allowed to get their bevy on at this tournament. In Scotland, we still don't have drink at home in Scotland in the stadiums, and it's just, are we having problems getting on with each other? I think it speaks to the fact that we really need something to happen tonight. Talking of flags, we really need Scotland to get through and to maybe hopefully kind of unite the country a bit more. But talking of flags, Billy Gilmour representing Ardrossan. I used to play football at Central Avenue. That film that he's talking about, his grandpa would kick the ball up and down at Central Avenue. I used to play football at Central Avenue. You'd pass Central Avenue. You're playing at Stanley Primary School football, you kind of faced down onto Central Avenue, and I would walk past Central Avenue to get down to Addressing Academy, the academy that Billy Gilmour never had to go to. I used to walk down to school every day, and in that film that he's in, the SFA film, Our Billy, it shows you there's a close-up on the baker. I was related to folk who worked in the post office and all that at Central Avenue. It's just quite amazing. I don't know why, but it brings it home what this is all about tonight. Representing, and there's a close-up of the bakers when Billy Gilmour's talking about how he loves going home and doing the cliched Scottish thing of getting a roll and slice and a tatty scone and what have you. And it showed the close-up of the bakers. And just to the right-hand side, if you watch the film again, you can see somebody's drive. There's a houses behind the bakers. But to the left of that drive, I don't know if it's still there. I've not been in there for a while because I don't go to Addressing Academy anymore. They keep telling me, no, Alec, you're not welcome. You're not going to get a game for the team no matter how often you turn up. There used to be a lock-up garage in there, like I'm talking the 70s here, which was the Barbers. I used to go in, it was a lock-up garage. The guy just hung a mirror up inside it, got a chair, got the razor in there, and a few chairs, and that was the Barbers. And I remember going to get my hair cut with my dad. You get your condoms in there as well. Ardrossan, great place, and that was the. It's just so kind of, and there it is, and that's the star of Scotland, Billy Gilmour, playing at the Euros tonight, and it's really kind of, I don't know, it's getting me. The only problem with I'm really enjoying the Euros. I've become a bit of a hypocrite. I'm loving. I do this with every single tournament that I watch. I don't want to watch it because I know I'm going to get totally invested. As the tournament approaches, I don't want to watch it. That's why I'm more angry than anything else. But the fact that there's 24 countries out of the 55 UEFA members are qualifying for the Euros. It's because it means it takes so long. But now, the day after the end of the 2 p.m. kickoffs, I can admit that, quite frankly, after a week of seeing the stadiums and the crests and the eagle crest, Poland and Austria, the Albanians, the double-headed, it's just the Skipiri. That's you hear the Albanian fans, Skipiri. That's the land of the eagles. That's the Albanian word for Albania. It's absolutely immense. It's like a cultural exploration. You get totally addicted to it. I've got no time to do anything else, and it gets quite stressful between games trying to get your food arranged, because I eat a lot so you can take in the build-up and watch the next game. But I'm actually quite glad to get a break. But I am now totally get the Isle of Man. They've got a football team, Jersey, Sark, Shetland, Orkney. Everybody get your football teams. Let's expand UEFA to 100 football teams and make 50 of them can qualify for the Euros. Make it a 2-month tournament. I don't want. There was a bit the other night where the Friday night tea time kickoff, the Austrian guy, was it Lautner he's called? He scored the first goal, heading into the top corner, and he's a Feyenoord captain. And earlier games, this was in Berlin, the Olympic Stadium in Berlin, and earlier games, there's a game in Frankfurt. The games in Frankfurt. In Frankfurt, they've got these translucent screens, these perspex screens at the top of the stand before the roof. They must have been 12 foot high. So sometimes when it's a sunny day, as it was in whatever game it was I was watching in Frankfurt, the cameras would pan back. It looks like there's no roof. If it's low enough, you don't see the roof. You see these perspex screens, it just looks like the sky, and it looks like the old style stadiums, massive bowl stadiums with no roof on them. When I was growing up, and at first it looked like the National Stadium used to look, the Ernst Happel, it used to be called the Prater Stadium in Vienna, no roof, but like 80,000 there. It looked like the Olympic Stadium itself in Berlin used to be, until they put the roofs on for the 1974 World Cup. Mostly no roofs on it, just this massive kind of coliseum. It's amazing. And the guy who scored the goal was the captain of Feyenoord, and Feyenoord, they've won the European Cup once, their greatest moment, and they had Franz Hassel that played for them. They had an Austrian who'd scored 2 goals for his country in total in his career, and that was this fella Lautner's second goal for Austria the other night, and their manager was Ernst Happel, after who the Austrian National Stadium was renamed. The Ernst Happel Stadium was renamed after him, because Ernst Happel won European Cup with Hamburg as well in 1983, but stuff like that just kind of gets me going, and I get a fall down that rabbit hole. And the only complaint I've got with the Euros so far is Scotland not doing as well as I would hope, but also the scheduling problem, where you've got all these 2 p.m. kickoffs between ex-Yugoslavian republics and ex-Soviet Union republics. I think the schedule, nobody's interested in these old Warsaw Pact countries, and they're all sensational. Serbia equalised in the last minute, 95th minute, against Slovenia, and that game between Albania and Croatia the other day was just insane. The 2-each game there, the guy who scores the own goal to put Croatia in the lead then goes up and scores to steal a point for Albania, and their fans are going absolutely nuts. phenomenal stuff. That's on at 2 o'clock when everybody's at their work. And the game that's on peak viewing time, 8 o'clock Friday night, is this 0-0 between France and the Netherlands. And that's the first 0-0, the commentators then told us, at the Euros for 50 games. The last Euros 0-0 was Scotland against England at Wembley in Euro 2020, played in 2021. And that was both teams' second game in the last Euros, Scotland and England. The old home nations, the people who invented the two teams that played the first international match ever played on St Andrew's Day, 1872. They drew 0-0 in that game, taking it to the Euros, taking it to the world, taking it to the watching world. And that was their second game, and it was England had won their first game in that Euros. The second game was a draw. It was a disaster for England. Same situation this Euros as per Scotland. We lost in that horrendous Patrick Schick goal. We lost 2-0 to the Czechs at Hampden in our first game of Euro 2020. I was at that game. And our second game, we get this draw, and we're going nuts. We played Billy Gilmour comes in and starts that game, and he's the star man. We get a draw. We're going crazy with optimism because we've got a point after 2 games. The English are ready to hang Gareth Southgate because they've got 4 points and are practically through after 2 games. That performance wasn't good enough. And I don't think it's like it's a difference in standards. It's the exact. It amounts to the exact same thing. Scotland have played 6 matches. Scotland have played 35 matches, I think, total it will be tonight in finals tournaments. 12 finals tournaments we've reached. We have won 6 matches total. Only 6 games we've ever won in finals football. England have been to 6 semi-finals. 6 times out of all the times they've qualified for tournaments, England have been to the semi-finals. Only twice have they gone beyond, have they won those semi-finals. So you get a situation where England are pretending they don't know. It's like the reaction, we saw it the other night when they drew 1 each with Denmark in Frankfurt. The reaction actually sickened me. It's one of the reasons I end up being very sympathetic to the England football team is the reaction they get from their media, the self-defeating reaction. They wanted them hung, drawn and quartered. We're going absolutely nuts with delight, optimism. I was talking about this in my last post-match reaction pod for this Euros, the last Scotland game after the Switzerland game. I was really worried about how optimistic our press was after we drew 1. Our media, the Scottish media, was delighted, celebrating this 1 each draw with the Swiss, which means we've got 1 point after 2 games and we're on the verge of going out. Whereas the English media, England are practically through. They've got 4 points already, but their media are going absolutely crazy about they're slanging them, haranguing them, basically wanting Gareth Southgate just sacked. I think they can't understand it. And it's like, what is going on here? Italy winning the World Cup in 1982, one of the most famous examples, in the Spain 82 World Cup, won by Italy, who drew all 3 of their group games, who had 3 points from their first 3 group games. Portugal winning Euro 2016, they drew their first 3 group games. One of them they went through on 3 points. One of those draws was with Iceland. That was a humiliation for them. They go and win the tournament. Argentina, at the last World Cup, getting beat off Saudi Arabia. They win the World Cup. The Argentina get beat. They won the World Cup in 1978. Italy beat them in the group stages. West Germany, 1974, 50 years ago, Germany hosting the World Cup. They lost to the East Germans, and some people think it was deliberate to get an easier second round group, but the amount of teams who win a finals tournament by winning all their games and winning them all impressively is negligible. I think it's 2 or 3 times it's happened ever. But because England have been to so few semi-finals, they have this deluded idea of what they should be doing game by game. And I listened to stuff the other night. I'm out for a walk and stuff like that. I want to get a bit of spare time through all this hectic football watching. It's like that's like the best part of 30 games in 7 days. It's hard going. Sitting in that sofa. I go for a bit of exercise. So I listen to a podcast, a Euros podcast. I've been listening to Radio Scotland podcasts, something that desperate, and I listened to 5 Live, and it was basically, a lot of it was the footage, a lot of it was just BBC television's interviews post-match after England's draw with Denmark. Now, Denmark have won the Euros. Denmark have been to, I think, the semi-finals of the Euros on 3 other occasions. They're no mugs. They're a fantastic football nation, the Danes, but it's this disaster. In England, 2 games in a row, they'd scored 1 goal only quite early on, and it had failed to kind of build on it. They beat the Serbs 1-0, but they'd drawn 1 each with the Danes. Fantastic goal Denmark scored as well. And Kelly Summers, the lassie's name is, she's interviewing Kyle Walker and Kieran Trippier. This is Kieran Trippier, Kyle Walker, who's won the Champions League. Kieran Trippier, who scored in the semi-final of the World Cup and stuff like that. He's quite a good level. They know their football. Is it a deliberate tactic to sit back after you take the lead? It's like, what? And they're trying their best not to say, what are you talking about? what? It's FITBA. It's the opposition. Start playing harder because they've gone a goal down. She actually asked Christian Eriksen of Denmark. She's saying to him, and did you know that when England took the lead, they were going to sit back? And he's stunned. He's like, what? Because it's a slagging for Denmark, like we only got an equaliser because England started deliberately playing crap. That's what she's implying. And he's like, no, England just started, we just started playing really well. We just knew we had to up our game because England had scored. Or we're going to end up getting cuffed. So it was, and then of course she's saying the same thing to Gareth Southgate. And says, John Murray, that was the fella, John Murray. He's talking to Gareth Southgate. He's like, what can go? If you wrote down the quotes of what John Murray had asked Gareth Southgate, that sounds okay. What can we do to turn this round? But it was the tone. You had to hear him asking these questions. It was gaslighting. He's saying to I said, what can we do to turn this round? What is the problem? What's the solution here to this? Like, to what? To the fact you're already through to the next round, but Gareth Southgate continues to take it. He continues to. This is how he's done so well in the England job, and people don't realise this thing. It's a bit like Steve Clarke, the Scotland job. Well, especially Rangers fans don't like Steve Clarke because he had to go back at us. Oh wow, take it on board. You're sectarian, slagging the guy with sectarian abuse. The least he can do is have one tiny wee go back at you by saying bye bye when he's actually talking to the Kilmarnock support. Like basically, it was a private do, even though it was shown live on television. He's got us to the first two finals we've got to. I didn't see Scotland qualifying for anything in my 30s, throughout my entire 30s and my entire 40s. That's ridiculous. So Steve Clarke's got us back to these tournaments. He's got us into playoffs, World Cup playoffs. I was at the game when Ukraine beat his World Cup playoff semi-final, albeit, and we were well beaten on the night. But he then, takes us and gets us promoted in the Nations League as well, which is massive. Going just to raise the standard of the Scottish national team and to hopefully, gets more money in, and it's just progress. That's twice we've been promoted. All the time under Alec McLeish, we get promoted in the Nations League, and Clarke kind of stabilised that in his first time in League B, and he's now got us up into League A. And I think it's a scaled. It's always the same with England and Scotland. It's a scaled down version. What we do kind of reflects what England do in the national. That's why I end up wanting England to do well, because it means Scotland eventually. There's like a trickle down effect. Somehow we'll do well. It's because maybe in the old days the SFA would just mimic the FA, and that still goes on in Scottish football. The Premiership and Coca-Cola League One and all that kind of stuff, as opposed to First Division, Second Division, Third Division. But there's lots of ways in which Scotland mimic their English masters. It looks like it always pisses me off. But in a positive sense, if England do well at tournaments, you think Scotland eventually going. I mean, England win the World Cup, and the following year we beat them at Wembley, and that becomes for a lot of people, certainly most living people, the greatest Scotland victory of all time. It should be probably when we beat France in those qualifiers under Alec McLeish, as far as I'm concerned. Or maybe when the Wembley Wizards in 1928 beating England at Wembley 5-1. But for most people of this kind of post-war generation, England win the World Cup, then we beat them and become unofficial world champions a year later. That's the greatest result in Scotland's history. So there's always a knock-on effect. But England have only reached the final of one tournament until Gareth Southgate came in. They reached the World Cup final. They won it under Alf Ramsey in '66. I don't know where they get this idea that they should be winning. Every game they play at a final is really, masterfully, really handily. Gareth Southgate has come in and become only the second England manager ever to get into a major final, which they lost on penalties. He's got them to another World Cup semi-final. He's taken them to third place, I think it was, in the Nations League as well. Like, not just getting to League A, but winning his league and getting to the actual finals of the Nations League. They lost their semi-final, but they beat the Swiss, I think it was, in the playoff for third place. So it's a fantastic achievement by Gareth Southgate. I think what he's got to do is turn around and have a go back at the English media. He's got to have a pop back at them. It's a bit like, for me, with Lionel Messi of Argentina. Everybody knew he was great, he was doing a good job, but they were used to it in Argentina, used to winning World Cups in Argentina. They'd won it in 78 and 86, and they'd won Copa Americas before. They'd had Maradona, for me still the greatest player of all time. So as much as they loved the Catalan, as they would pointedly call him at times, they just wanted something a bit more from it. And when they lost the final of the World Cup in 2014 under Messi against Germany and Brazil. They lose two Copa America finals to Chile, and it was this real thing where it was Messi just temporarily packed in international football because he'd had enough of the pain of getting to the final but never winning it, especially when at that point Cristiano Ronaldo has finally won a major finals tournament with Portugal. He's never quite got that final kind of confirming he's as good as Maradona moment, Lionel Messi, and then 18 months ago, really, in Qatar, they have that quarter-final against the Dutch. That's fine. Argentina are progressing. They got out their group after a shaky start, and they're in the quarter-final, and they have that epic, the Battle of Lusail against the Dutch, and Wout Weghorst comes on and scores the 2 goals that get the Dutch back into the game, take it to extra time, penalties, lots of bad-tempered stuff in that game, and there always is when the Dutch are involved, and they end up, Argentina progress, but there's that moment where Weghorst maintains he's just trying to kind of shake hands and swap shots with Messi afterwards while Messi's getting interviewed live on Argentinian television, and you talking to stupid Bobo? Hey, stupid! What are you talking to, stupid? Get out of here, fool! Piss off, fool! And Messi, who's kind of calm, collected, almost kind of introverted character, he has that moment where he goes a bit Diego. He goes just a wee bit Maradona the Bull. He just has a pop, and it's probably unnecessary as well. He's just been bad-tempered. I think he's subsequently regretted it and talked about how he apologised for his actions and all that. But the Argentinian public loved it. That was the moment. That was the moment where they just went, yeah, he's got that extra bit of salt, that extra bit of edge in there. And they go on, and finally, Diego Maradona is equalled by what Messi did. Messi's won a World Cup and he's lost a World Cup final. The same as Maradona did, and I don't think Maradona ever won the Copa America. Messi did that as well just before that with they're winning a COVID Copa America in Brazil. So that put him up in the pantheon, absolutely no questions asked, alongside Maradona. And I think if Gareth Southgate, there is obviously legitimate questions about his management, but if he wants to go that extra yard, I think he's done all the Messiing about, if you like. He's circling it. He's circling that moment in his career to date with England. I think he just needs to turn around and say to like Gabriel Clarke, John Murray, Kelly Summers, shut it. You're talking pish. This is how shite we usually have. We are a quarter-finals team, always have been a quarter-finals team, England, and I am getting these to semi-finals and finals. You want to shut up, get behind the team, get real, and they'll completely destroy him. They'll annihilate him. This is the media that actually scared off Phil Scolari, Brazil manager. At the peak of his powers, the FA were going to get him on board, the guy who'd won the World Cup at that point in time. They were going to get him before he went downhill, and the hat went in the ring, and as soon as it did, the fucking tabloids doorstepped him and scared them off. They scared off a Brazilian football manager. That's how bad it is, how self-defeating it is. And but I think he needs to do it. I think he needs to just have that moment where his team can go, aye, okay, the gaffer's on board, let's get this done. And it made me the horrific reaction. I found it really actually disturbing listening to those interviews with Gareth Southgate the other day. The level of kind of insinuated abuse he's getting from BBC commentators, BBC interviewers, and it made me so much happier than I had been the previous night. As I was on here in my post-match reaction pod after the Switzerland game, I was worried at how upbeat our team. I've always been worried about how upbeat the Tartan Army has become over the last few decades of non-qualification, almost kind of encouraging failure in my mind at times. But it just made me think, yeah, our positivity is so much better than that level of negativity that the English are going through. And of course, it's the hope that kills you. That's what it's all about. It's the hope that kills you. That's I said that the other day. There's been so much. I think a lot of the stuff about the Tartan Army and a lot of stuff at BBC Scotland and just Scottish channels, the coverage of the Scotland national team is so cliched, so painful. Lorraine Kelly, even Kirsty Ward was getting in on it. That she was, for some reason, she was in Munich, the Allianz Arena in Munich. This is what it's like to be Scottish, though. You're just, sometimes you're great, sometimes you're terrible. It's like that kind of cliched garbage. It's totally inaccurate, and it doesn't help. It doesn't help at all. I'm bitter because I am really invested, as I said, born in Winton Street or Drogheda. They don't get much more invested in football than that. I put so much money into Scottish football, watching juniors, watching Rangers, watching thousands of football matches I've been to my whole life. The TV channels that you're buying, all this stuff. The SFA is getting a split of all that, and to see people coming in. There was a Radio Scotland interview with a guy from Travis the other day. Maybe the guy who supports Rangers from Travis. He's fine. He's just been a kind of transatlantic rock star thing. Going, yeah, it's brilliant. Scotland, fantastic. It's great. It's great fun. You don't want to support Scotland. It's so painful. You got to be real. The guy's just been a rock and pop star the way he should be. I'm not a big Travis fan, but just a musical thing. I'm not against them. They seem like decent guys. But the last year's interview them sound like, a Scottish version of Princess Anne or something. She was so upper class now. It's so private school, and she's kind of like, oh, it's crazy, isn't it? Scotland. You never know what's going to happen. It's pure mental, by the way. So it's this kind of cultural appropriation that goes on, and a lot of I hear it within the Tartan Army. It's like Kevin Bridges' skit, if you like, about the banter, the Callums, the Blairs, the Donalds. There's a lot of that. Oh, let's get the Kerry out, and let's go pure mental and hope Scotland do the business. And it's going to be great bants. I can't stand it. And it's like it's become a massive stag do. And one of the lines is, it's the hope that kills you. It's the hope that kills you. I met a boy the other day. I was out for a walk, and he's like, and I had the earbuds in. He's going, I'm like, so that guy got a problem with me. I'm like, what is it, mate? And he's like, you do a podcast? I'm like, oh, the guy watched Jersnet. I'm like, yeah, I'm chatting about Jersnet, and you're a Blue Nose. Oh, of course, my Blue Nose. I wouldn't recognise you if I wasn't a Blue Nose. I know we got a lot of Celtic fans. She's like, they're total ambulance chasers, aren't they? Every time you get beat, there's lots of Celtic fans watching it. I know what you mean, mate. And I was next season, but this Ibrox isn't even going to be ready. Oh, I know, absolutely mental. You think you're going to get a break because of the Euros? And I'm like, maybe the season's going to work out all right. You never know. I'm like, it's a hope that kills you. And he's like, what? So the hope that kills you. And do you watch other Rangers? No, that's all done, mate. This is done. I'm the guy saying to me, looking at me like, I watch your podcast because it's quite decent. I like the Jersnet podcasts. These are really good on Jersnet. But the hope that kills you. You're using that phrase, and it's so I just walked away in shame, and I'm hearing it getting used all the time. And it's not the hope that kills you. It's the sheer lack of hope that kills you. It's this refusal to believe, being scared to invest. The Tartan Army. I remember the footage. The first World Cup, the first finals I remember was '78 Argentina. So obviously I've been brought up hard. I've been brought up a hard school supporting Scotland. But the guys with the kilts and are hanging over the tunnel in Cordoba or Mendoza, whoever it was, and they're shouting at Ali McLeod. They're giving him absolute abuse. That's fucking garbage, by the way. That's what you need. That's what it should be. Guys that actually care about the football. They can do the whole thing, a bit daft and all that. We're going to get the gear on. It's international football. It's a bit of a party. You're supposed to have a good time travelling there. But when it comes to the actual football, Scotland got to the point, I think the Tartan Army became a kind of weird, we're not going to be hooligans. That's some sort of achievement. The English are hooligans. We're going to beat them in that front because we can't beat them in the football anymore. We almost gave up trying to win. No Scotland, no party. Oh, dear. There was a kind of, when Germany put the ball in their own net last Friday night to give us one goal, and they're cheering it and they're singing, you're not singing anymore and stuff. And it's like, that's almost celebrating failure. That goes beyond just kind of taking it in the chin and try. There comes a point you need to be angry. There comes a point you need to be ashamed. I think it's a lack of hope that screams of, and it's only hope. The hope will kill you when you're only hoping. When that's all you're doing, you're not actually. We need concrete, solid, not evidenced, actual foundations put in place. And the thing with the Billy Gilmour film the other day was he spoke about. I looked him up on Wikipedia, and he'd gone to Grange Academy in Kilmarnock as part of an SFA programme of excellence or something. And I thought it's not exactly Clairefontaine, but that is something that's working. That is something that has worked in the shape. And you see the documentary with Billy Gilmour, it's obvious. It's his dad, his mum and dad, and his whole family, his brothers, and that is what they're putting into it, since he was a wee kid. Just really bringing him up in this kind of uniquely football-focused environment. We need that as well. We need that going on, but that's what goes on in the houses in Argentina and Germany and what have you. We need that going on in every house in Ardrossan, Salkett, Stevenson, throughout Scotland. Get that, and then we hand them over to the experts, and they get sold to Chelsea for £500,000 when they're 12 years old. But doesn't it, as long as we get these players developed, and that's the kind of salt. That's the stuff that gives me real hope, And we need Scotland tonight to progress. We need Scotland to show that we can do this. I learned early, as I say, that you have to find a way to enjoy football while taking on board the fact it's going to be disappointing. There's going to be defeats. It's going to be terrible at times. It's going to be really painful. You need to find a way to process that. So many people just give up on the result and become this ongoing stag do. That's not what the Tartan Army is entirely about. There's a lot of that in it. I see that at Rangers games as well. Sometimes I used to go into Loudon after games, sometimes to meet pals, and we'd maybe just suffered a defeat to Celtic or something. There's folk already get the tunes on party, and you're like, do you actually care? and maybe once a few pints down the line, but it'd be like, back a five, and it's already, oh, let's get the songs on, I'm just here for the party. Like, nah, there's got to be an absorption of what's actually happened here if we actually care about our football team. But I early doors realised you've got to be able to take on these defeats, and there's a kind of lot of plastic performative crying and wailing and gnashing of teeth. For example, we lost a last minute equaliser to a car crash for an equaliser to the Poles, to Robert Lewandowski, when we're on the cusp of qualifying for Euro 2016. At the exact same time, we were seeing on our phones that the Irish had beaten the Germans. It was a result that didn't suit us that night either, an unexpected result in Dublin. And that was a terrible moment. There's people sitting about doing the whole kind of, oh, I'm crying into my scarf. I hope the Sky TV cameras pick me up and I've got a moment I can sell to my friends for the rest of my life as me being a real fan. No, you just go. Just go to the game, support your team, and then fuck off when they get beat. Don't hang about, make a fool of yourself. I can do that. I will cry when we win. I'll never cry when we get beat. But when I see it, it must be like, I don't have kids, it must be like having kids. You can take the hardships of life on board yourself, but when you see it happen to somebody else, and the strangest thing when you think about the size of these guys, the Scotland rugby team, the Scotland International Rugby Union, and when you think about the kind of financial background, a lot of these guys, the lawyers and chartered surveyors of the world, a lot of private school boys involved in the Scottish rugby scene, but you also got the boys for the borders and all that. It's a kind of working man's game down there, and it was a 2015 Rugby World Cup. Watching Scotland playing, and I don't even know the rules of rugby. I enjoy the Rugby World Cup because I can be the kind of fan that I hate at the Euros. Just like, oh, I'm just here for the colours and for the, if the camera picks me up on the big screen, I can have a wave and all that. I love the Rugby World Cup for that. It lets me actually relax and enjoy a sporting tournament. I'm too invested in the football, even if Scotland aren't there at the Euros and the World Cup and what have you, to enjoy it as such. It's more like it's my life. So I'm enjoying it, and then I'm watching Scotland in the quarterfinals against the Australians, and I know enough about rugby to know that's a loser. Australians are always going to beat you. And with 5 minutes to go, 74th minute, only 80 minutes in the rugby, Scotland get a try and a conversion to put them, I think it's a point in front or whatever. They put them in the lead. And my wife and I didn't cheer. I remember sitting watching the kit, and it was like, oh, I'm quite enjoying this. Oh, go on, Scotland, hope. And then suddenly they went in front with 5 minutes to go. And the two of us just went silent, and I started sobbing. I actually started sobbing because I knew what was going to happen. It was like, it's a national thing. Yeah, Jackie Stewart with the motor racing, he's really good at that, but I'm like, you're not thinking, here we go. They're a minute from the semi-finals. They've been in the semi-finals of the Rugby World Cup before, Scotland. And I think it was set up to play Argentina. There's a chance they could end up in their first Rugby World Cup final. That would be amazing. You're just sitting going, this is tragedy waiting to happen. This is the glorious failure bit coming in. And sure enough, I think it was the 80th minute. It was the very last minute. Australia got I don't even know the scoring. I think we were a point in front. Is a penalty give you 2 points? It must have been a penalty. The guy gets the penalty in the last and puts it between the sticks, and we get beat by a single point with the last kick of the game. And sitting there, when it actually happened, it was like, that's fine. I was ready for that. I'm built for that. I'm built for that defeat. But the thought, the feeling of glory and knowing it was going to be denied was just unbearable. And what was much worse was the 2019 Women's World Cup. I went to Hampden, proper football World Cup, the round ball. I went to Hampden and I watched, queued up. It was bedlam. They weren't ready for the size of the crowd. There was almost 19,000 there, the record crowd for a women's game. And they're talking about Drossen, my wee cousin, is the head of, or she was the head of women's football at the SFA, and she's from a Drossen. You know what I mean? She went to Stanley Primary School. She's now I think MD of the SWPL. And so I'd really invested in women. I've been, playing football with my sister. I used to play football with her at the back door. I'm invested in women's football as well. Don't go to a lot of women's games, but I went along to that one, a kind of bandwagon jumper, just to cheer them, just to see them off. This friendly against Jamaica, the biggest crowd ever for women's football in Scotland. And we sent them off to that World Cup, and they lose narrowly. I'm just watching the telly. They lose narrowly to England in the first game. They lose narrowly to Japan, who'd won the World Cup in 2011, Japan's women's team, in the next game. But it's one of those tournaments like the Euros tonight where 3 points will get you through if everything else works out. Third place, a good third place finish can get you through, and that was going to be the case for Scotland. And they're playing at Argentina, and it's in the Parc des Princes. Pronsley, one of the most romantic, beautiful football venues in the entire planet. Most beautiful sporting venues, full stop. But we're 3-0 up. In the 70th minute, I think we scored the third goal to go 3-0 up, and I'm thinking to myself, it was like 30,000 there, and it holds about 50,000. I thought I could be there. I could actually have been there to watch this happening. A Scottish football team, a senior Scottish football team, an adult Scottish football team is going to go through the second stage. I had no idea how much it was going to mean to me. I was so proud. I was bursting with pride. It was one of those, I'm not invested in the women's game the way I am in the men's game. So I don't have the kind of mental and emotional room to go and watch Rangers women's team as much as I'd like to, or go and watch the Scotland women's team as much as I should. But I was just so proud. And Argentina pulled one back in the 75th minute. I'm like, okay. And then they pulled another one back, maybe the 80th minute. And it was unbearable. It was unbearable. And I know it's sexist. I know it's patronising. And it's unrealistic as well for me to feel sorry for women because they're women. Because women look after me my entire life. But I was like, don't do it to the lassies. You can't do this to the lassies. The lassies can't get through this as well. It was the 95th fucking minute. And Argentina, it wasn't even like a straightforward goal. It was a penalty. Not to prolong the agony. The same as the bloody Australians at the rugby in 2015. And in goes. And it goes, that penalty, it's 3 each, and the Scotland lassies team are out. And it's not just that they're out, it's they've done that thing where they've fought like hell in every game, and they've tried, and they've tried, and they've given us so much hope, and it gets taken away. But fucking hell, at least have the hope. At least have the hope. I don't know what Steve Clarke's going to do tonight. I don't know what he's going to do tonight. I don't know. There's a whole thing about, Kieran Tierney is now injured, and the formation has been about fitting in. The formation that we've played mostly under Steve Clarke has been about fitting in these two world-class left-backs we've got in Kieran Tierney and Andy Robertson. That's no longer a problem, so maybe you'll go to a flat-back four. Maybe. The problem is the Hungarians have got Szoboszlai. I think he comes down the left for Hungary, so he's going to be facing up our right-hand side, and Anthony Ralston, I don't know if his whole kind of arc of redemption storyline was played out in that 90-minute movie in Cologne the other night, if it's supposed to go on for this entire tournament. Maybe we're talking about having James Forrest as a wing-back so we can just full-on attack the Hungarians. With everything that's happened with Scottish football, with those tragedies and the particular ways we find of taking defeat from the jaws of victory, I can imagine every possible scenario. There's a way you can go through in 2 points. I can imagine there's like drawing tonight and the whole nation's gutted and it ends up 2 points is enough to get us through. I think the 5-1 tank and what that's done to our goal difference in the first game is really going to affect us. I think that's making those kind of things unlikely. We can get the 4 points. Go through in 4 points. I can imagine us actually going out there tonight and gubbing Hungary 3-0 and the Germans beat the Swiss 5-0. And we end up going through in second place, and there's no need to worry about anything in the rest of the fixtures played at the Euros this week. But I don't know how Steve Clarke's going to set up. John McGinn hasn't been at his best. I noticed it in particular the game in Gibraltar, the warm-up match we played in Gibraltar, and I'm thinking about that game. I'm really obsessed with the fact, one of the things that represents how poor Scotland have been, how horrendously poor we are compared to the passion that we have for the game in this country. It's not the size of the man in the fight, as I say. It's not the size of the man, the population. It's the size of the love of football in that population. And we spend so much time and money obsessing with football in this country that there's no reason we can't be a Uruguay or a Croatia and just do so much better than we're doing in the international stage. And I want Steve Clarke to do it tonight. I want him to get us through because it'll just mean so much to us. But what the hell am I talking about? I've completely lost it. I've talked for far too long here. It's there's too much to say because it's too emotional. But one of the things that gets to me, as I was saying, in terms of representing how poorly Scotland do, is our top goal scorers, Ken Dalglish and Dennis Law, are tied on 30 goals. That's the most anybody's ever scored for Scotland, 30 goals. You've got like Arnautovic going out the night for Austria and scoring, what was his 37th goal for Austria? And Austria are as pish poor as us these days. They have been for decades, the same as Scotland. I think it's the lowest tally of any top scorer for any of the home nations. It was Robbie Keane, I think, got like 70 odd goals for the Republic of Ireland. It's just ridiculous. It's embarrassing. So I'm really obsessed, and I know that John McGinn just needs one more to equal Ali McCoist in 5th place on the all-time Scotland scorers list. And I remember watching that game against Gibraltar, and thinking he can get a hat-trick tonight. He scored a hat-trick for Scotland before, John McGinn. He can get a hat-trick tonight, and that'll be that. He'll just go clear in 5th place. And he didn't. He just wasn't at all. But he's more involved than you realise, John McGinn. I think this could be his moment tonight as well, if anything. But there's talk of him perhaps being dropped and just lets Christie and Billy Gilmour and McTominay all play in that Scotland midfield. We'll see what happens. But I don't expect massive changes other than those that are enforced by Tierney's injury. That's him out of the tournament. That's devastating for Scotland. And of course, Ryan Porteous' ongoing suspension. But I just hope Billy Gilmour plays. That's the main thing for me. And there's this thing about how 4th place is going to get you through. 4 points is definitely going to get you through. And I think it was really telling that Gabby Logan was the person who announced this the other day after an article, after a wee half-time item on a Scotland game. 4 points. No one has ever in this current format of the Euros gone out, I know, after achieving 4 points. And Gabby Logan is married to a Scotland international. Rugby Scotland international. Well, she's Welsh, isn't she? So she would be. And her dad, of course, is Terry Yorath, the Welsh footballing international. She should know about Scotland. Scotland, 50 years ago in Germany, became the first country ever to go out of the World Cup without losing a game. You know, and as people say, Germany won that World Cup and they lost a game. Scotland didn't lose a single game in that World Cup finals and managed to go out the first time it ever happened. So I don't know about that. And I've been talking a lot about I've been talking far too much anyway, but I've been talking a lot about Euro 92, Scotland qualifying for that. There was only 8 teams at the Euros. So technically, that means, even if we go through the last 16 tonight, in some ways it's not as big an achievement. I don't think so, but in some ways it's not as big an achievement if Scotland go through to the second round of this tournament, because we'd only been in the last 16 of this tournament. We've been in the last 8 before. Then I realised that Terry Yorath, Gabby's dad, was directly involved in a similar situation with Wales, because Wales, the famous thing about them was up until Euro 2016, they hadn't qualified for anything between Euro 2016 and 1958, the 1958 World Cup. But in the middle of that, in 1976, the Euros was only 4 teams. It was a qualifying tournament, and it got to the semi-final point. Then you picked a country. 2 cities in that country held both semi-finals, the final, and the 3rd, 4th place playoff. So the quarter-finals were home and away, and Wales reached those quarter-finals. They played Yugoslavia in 1976. They lost 2-0 in Yugoslavia, home leg in Cardiff. It was 1 each, and Wales got a penalty. And nobody wanted to take the penalty. And Terry Yorath was the captain, who had never taken a penalty in his life. The only penalty he took in his entire professional career, because he had to, because he was the captain, and nobody else wanted to take it, and he missed it. It was a terrible penalty, and Wales went out. But they had reached a quarter-final. But then Wales, kicked that out of the water in 2016 by hitting the semis. They just took the technicality out of that. That didn't actually matter. And it's one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen, was when Wales went through in the Euros in 2016 in Toulouse, a stadium used for football and rugby, and it was in summertime. It was a kind of purple sky setting in the background. Every time the cameras pan back, it matches the colours of the Toulouse football team strip as well. And they were playing Russia, and they beat them 3-0. They needed to beat Russia to go through, and they beat them 3-0, and they cruised into the knockout stages of a tournament. And I thought, I want this for Scotland. Another Celtic nation, watching another Celtic nation doing it, and doing it with such style and such grace. I want this for Scotland. We need to achieve this before I die. Just getting into the second round of a tournament. It's 28 years since Scotland won a match at a finals tournament. 28 years. It was that 1-0 win over Switzerland at Villa Park at Euro 96. I wasn't there. I was at Euro 96. I've told you this a million times before. I've got tickets for, before the actual tournament, before anybody knew who'd qualified. I went this loyalty package thing where you got 6 group games, and that meant you could get 2 quarterfinals, semi-final, final. I'd been to Villa Park before, so Villa Park was the only stadium my mate and I weren't going to go to. And we ended up completely missing Scotland. We thought, well, we're banging into Scotland somewhere. We went to all the qualifying games of Euro 96 at Hampden. But we thought, if we're going to go to 10 games at Euro 96, no, but we saved Wembley until last, the semi-final and final at Wembley, so we could plan the trip down through England. And so, of course, Scotland are at Wembley and Villa Park in the group stage, and we missed them completely. But the night Scotland were playing Switzerland at Villa Park, I was on my way back from Ellen Road, Leeds, having watched Spain beat Romania to go through to the next stages. And my mate and we'd parked the car, we were staying at Diggs at Sheffield, going to games at Ellen Road and games at Hillsborough. And we're driving back to Diggs and Sheffield. We're up that hill somewhere halfway between Leeds and Sheffield, and it was a pizza place. It's a standalone kind of concrete bunker of a pizza place. We're starving. We'll get something. We'd be listening to the game in the car. England are cruising. Scotland are winning 1-0, and we had a ticket for the quarter final. England maintained their 4-goal advantage over the Dutch, and Scotland continued to beat Switzerland by a single goal. Scotland are in the quarterfinals, their first time in the knockout stages of a major tournament, and that quarterfinal for Scotland would be Villa Park against the French. And my mate and I had tickets for the back row of the Kop for that quarterfinal at Anfield, and we thought it was meant to happen. Of course, David Seaman then lets that trundle of a shot from Kluivert through his leg, and Scotland are out. I mean, it's didn't Scotland to score more goals on the night, so I never saw it. We didn't have the phones in those days. You could watch these things online. We're just in a pizza shop with 4 foreign guys working behind the counter on the pizza shop. They're cheering on England though, and they're cheering on Scotland. They were all congratulating each other. And by the time I bit into my ham and pineapple, Scotland were out, and it was tragic. But I never saw it because it was coming back for this other game. So it's actually 32 years. Euro 92 was the last time I sat down even on television and watched Scotland win a game at a finals when we beat the CIS by 3-0. We were already out. And I want us to replicate what Wales did and beat them. It's more than a technicality. It's much more than a technicality to get through tonight. Gillette, the best a man can get. You see the Gillette adverts during the Euros these days. I never know Gillette, the best a man can get. You know the adverts so well, but it's only watching so many of those adverts because I'm watching so much of the Euros just now that I realised there's lyrics to the song, and they're saying you've come so far and you know how to make the most of who you are. You know how to make the most. I think that's Scotland. We've come so far just to be here. We know how to make the best of who we are, and we need those 4 points. We need those 4. We get on to 4 points, and no need for flags, no need for banners. Just like Billy Gilmour, who couldn't play in the third game in Euro 2020 after being brought in to get us that positive draw in the second match. Let Billy Gilmour put Scotland on the international map the way he's put Ardrossan on the British map. Let's go local. Let's go local about the local. Central Avenue to the central nervous system to gloriously uncharted territory. I'm just hoping Scotland can plant our flag. A line rampant a saltire, just plant it, Scotland. Plant it in the second round of a tournament for the first time ever. And Ardrossan went Rovers on the saltire next to a saltire that says Salkits Victoria. Maybe St George's Cross with Celtic on it, and next to St George's Cross with Aberdeen FC on it. That's the kind of thing we're trying to go for. Just try to unite Ardrossan, try to unite Salkits. Let's unite the whole of Scottish football. Just like a third of a bed sheet. Just a cut up bed sheet and those big, massive uppercase capital letters. Ardrossan. Massive kind of obliterating uppercase letters. Just hang that banner, Scotland, raise the standard, and give the ball to Billy Gilmour, and be ready for him to give it back to you.